All right. Welcome everyone to the November A.P.M.A monthly board meeting. We are live on YouTube and we have our board in attendance with us today. We do not have any guest attendees either to speak or to join us in committee updates. So we'll move to reading of the mission. Appleton Public Montessori seeks to nurture the full potential of every child through the presence of the Montessori philosophy in all learning environments, encouraging intrinsic motivation and instilling a love of learning now and for a lifetime. I'll ask for universal consent to approve the minutes from last meeting. Hearing no opposition, I'll move those forward. And I'll ask for universal consent of the approval of today's agenda. And hearing no objections, we'll move forward with today's agenda. We do not have any voting items up today, so we move directly to the administrator's report. Cassie, you have the floor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First, I just want to give my thanks to everyone, and especially those of you at home who are working with your children. I know it's hard, but I also know that reports from staff, just say that kids are getting into a routine and they're getting to know the platform. So I know it's not easy and we don't like it, but the goals that we kind of set out to reach are underway. And so I just want to thank all of you for your hard work at home. Anyway, my main update is about our district and their work toward the Virtual Plus model, and also coming back and how it would look like if we brought children back in person. So just so you know, families will be getting an email soon on plans from the district. So please keep an eye out for that email. When you get it, read it, think about it, report back to me or to anybody on the board what you're thinking, questions, comments, concerns. And as this is coming out soon, we also want to give you a chance to talk about it. So we'll provide an opportunity about that and give you a chance to share what you're thinking. We also will ask you eventually what you as a family would consider. Would you consider bringing, having your kids return in person if, that plan worked for you, or would you continue learning virtually? And as I said last time, that will be imperative for us to know so that we can make our plans and finalize the details as a school on how we do that, both of that. So that's my main update. Thank you.
Any questions for Cassie?
Cassie, this is Derek. I know as parents look to think about bringing their child back, kind of their success virtually, I think would also come into play. Is that something that might be on the docket for next meeting for us to go ahead and review some of the new standardized testing that was done?
I think it's definitely worth thinking about. This test is a different type of test. So we can look at how our kids are doing compared to the district, but I don't know how. I would want to maybe wait until after our winter testing so that we had two sets of data points compared to the district and compared to themselves. Does that answer your question, Derek?
I'm just thinking from a parent's, standpoint, even getting an idea of what it may look like as far as success at A.P.M. and compared to the district while making that decision, because I think there's some real fruit to allowing our teachers to teach in person, especially with the Montessori aspect. And just wondering if there's anything lost from that standpoint, which might be persuasive for some parents to say, oh, maybe I do need to get my child back in, or maybe they feel, hey, nope, actually they're doing great outside. I just think that'd be good information to go ahead and have.
Yeah, I mean, the first glance at the data, our students are performing above the district average, which are kind of expected. Again, like I said, the virtual learning is probably a little slower than we all want, but the learning is happening. But you're right. So it's definitely worth looking into, Derek. Good idea. Thank you.
Cassie, maybe, maybe bringing some of the academic data qualitatively from the teachers at the December meeting might be appropriate, even more than the standardized test, given how new that iReady was for us anyway. That might be more localized data that might be helpful in December.
Yeah, well, yeah, good point. I mean, again, it is all new for the teachers, and some of the things that they're looking at aren't typical, but I think they could definitely provide more of the picture that way.
All right, other questions for Cassie at this time?
No questions. I just feel like if there's a comparison, as far as like testing district-wise or state-wise or nation-wise, I would think that because we're all kind of going through the same thing, that everybody is sort of at a disadvantage. So I would think that, and maybe Cassie knows better about this, that, they're going to judge whatever testing happens because of what we're going through right now. Cassie, thoughts?
Cassie was having some technical difficulties right before the meeting. We may allow her to jump back in.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry with my Wi-Fi tonight. I usually don't have this problem, but I missed what Paige was saying.
Paige, go ahead.
Well, I was just coming at it as like, if there's any testing that's happening, I would think locally or statewide or, nationwide, that there would be okay, we're all kind of at the same playing field here, that, testing might just sort of be thrown out the window for this whole sort of COVID time we're going through. I don't know, Cassie?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting to think about. And the testing company actually has some data around what it means to test at home and how much support kids may or may not be getting. And, the stories of parents trying to help or not help or this or that. I would caution all of us to put too much stock into the test data for two reasons, just because it's new for the kids too, and they're doing it, in a setting that is a little bit less controlled. But it can help paint a picture, and along with the teacher's point of view of what they're doing can paint a picture too, to go to Derek's point of like, is it working for my child or not? There's definitely some interesting success stories that, I'm hearing of students who might get more distracted in school and are kind of finding some success with this virtual learning. So, pros and cons both ways.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to steering committee updates, and I'm on the docket first. I will share a screen with you right now. So I just wanted to bring the major trends of the family survey over Q1 to the board's full attention. We gave the 4 surveys over Q1. We voted that we would end these after Q1, and that is still steering's consensus, that we do not any longer need to do a bi-weekly survey of families, that the normal structures of speaking concerns to the board and to the administrator and to teachers can be put into place at this time. For 2 reasons. One, the major trends are consistent over time. So we've been able to pull out some patterns, and they are similar over time at this point. The participation significantly dropped at the last survey, which we felt it was made clear that families had shared what they needed to share overall. about the virtual quarter start. We do know that there is always going to be ongoing questions and concerns as we move through this different year. And so we do encourage families to use the avenues of communication that we have to talk to the board and to ask questions and to communicate with the administrator and teachers. All right, so the major trends, I would like to say that these are trends. So these are patterns over the 4 surveys that we pulled out. Technology was needed for some families at the beginning, but at this point, at the end of the quarter, all students appear to have working technology. Communication between the school teacher and families was and remained a positive marker. Over time, more families reported that the schedule was working for their student. The addition of iReady seemed positive overall. Music and art are going well. Many families wish to have more music and art. There is some concern about timing. Families are overly appreciative and wonderfully appreciative of the work of the educators, and that came through every single time from every single survey. We so appreciate the work that our teachers are doing. Parents are overworked, exhausted, and struggling to care and school multiple children across multiple ages. This was very clear and evident at every survey collection. The board hears this. We know it. We are living it too as parents, and we appreciate your time and care in giving what you can to your children at this time. Some Children's House students are struggling with connecting to school. The E1 level has a wide range of student needs. Some students are not challenged enough, and some students are very challenged by the amount of work and the modality. There is a wide variance between too easy and too challenging. Families do wish for more social opportunities for students. And new families have been particularly challenged at this time to support their children to meet other children. And new families have been particularly challenged to understand Montessori terminology, some of the kinds of lessons that have been given. And I'll stop screen sharing at this time, and I'll just ask for any questions and also observation from board members at this time that they wish to share, as all the board members have been able to see all of the survey data at this time as well.
Stephanie, this is Andrea. What did parents indicate that they want more social opportunities for their kids and to meet other kids? Was there suggestions from parents? Do you remember specifically?
There was, they wanted connection, social connection in classrooms a lot. So time and space in the actual class time. That was one suggestion. A lot of suggestions for not a concrete example, not a concrete suggestion, but like how to accomplish this, but ways to think about recess or lunch being a social time. So how to do recess in a virtual environment, I guess, is the kind of suggestion that was heard a couple of times. So I think those are the two major suggestions I heard for what to do socially.
Yeah, if I remember right, sorry, is it okay if I jump in?
Yes, of course.
If I remember right, there were some suggestions or requests for like breakout room opportunities where kids could work together within a breakout room. Last I heard that was being worked on. Google Meets didn't have that feature until recently. Or even just setting up some other activities in Google Meets within the already set up Meet areas, but maybe after school and supervised by parents or something like that. I think I remember something to that effect.
Yeah, I know E2 has started breakout rooms. I've seen them. So I know that E2 has started breakout rooms. Cassie started the principal lunch. But there's some opportunity for being creative about thinking about the social opportunities right now virtually.
So like maybe some groups, I guess, social groups, things like that. You guys have like, I know that there's a Minecraft group that they have that kids can get involved with.
Yep, the virtual yarn club started this week, and that was a packed room. Both my kids were in that. So there has been some movement towards this, but overall, I think that was definitely a concern. And Andrea, it's a good question because there were two major suggestions. It was both after school or like in between class time, and also increasing social time during class. Those were but the concrete suggestions were not quite there yet to think through how to do that.
Or
so
if they,
Nicole, like, would you have, and Ashley, I'm sure it's probably very difficult. You're dealing with really small kids, and I can't imagine. But, Nicole, I would think you'd be able to have some kind of more open, and I don't want to tell you how to teach your class, but, I have a kid in middle school, and, they'll teach a class, and then like the teacher is just kind of still there for like the next, I don't know, half an hour or 45 minutes. And after they've taught a lesson, the kids can kind of, pop back in and say, hey, I have a question, or, she's just kind of always there. How do you run your classroom?
Well, mentioned E2 with breakout rooms, and it's not something we've done as a whole class yet. It's just something we've tested with a couple students, and Mrs. Stern and I are kind of trying to vet it out a little bit, hopefully starting it next week. But, we have to talk about all the logistics of it too, because you're letting kids under your guidance be in a room by themselves. And, that takes some prep work as a teacher too, of how that all runs. But, I think what the kids are looking for is more social with themselves, not necessarily social with me, even though we're available almost all the time, when we're not in a lesson or teaching small groups or individuals, for kids to reach out and ask for a Google Meet. But I think what the real work is putting them in groups together just as kids to work. And that's kind of where the real work is taking place between Mrs. Strand and I at this point. So.
Thank you, Nicole. Tia?
yes, I do have a question about that. Would there need to be additional adults in there, or would you just be like flipping from room to room to check in on kids, or are those questions that you're still working out? Because I know that there is always concern for, well, what if these kids are doing things they shouldn't be or talking about, or, things like that. So I guess I was just curious to know.
I mean, that's the thing we're trying to vet out right now is, what does that look like? Because we can't, if you have 5 rooms, there's not enough adults to have an adult in every room. So it would have to be the teacher flipping back and forth. But, anytime we would put kids in a breakout room, there would be some sort of task that they have to complete as a group, and turn that in to show that they have done that as a group. So just making sure that conversation is on task, and obviously we want them to be somewhat social and chat a little bit. That's kind of the point of it, but at the same time have some sort of task and goal that they're working towards as well.
Sure, and have some, absolutely, that makes sense.
Derek?
So I know we've done the survey for the parents. Has there been a survey that went out to the teachers at all to get like their point of view on how things are going? Not that I'm aware of, at least. And is that something that we would like their feedback?
Cassie?
Thanks. I'm again, sorry, I'm cutting out here and there. So I think I can answer this one. I think I heard the whole thing. So the district, Appleton Area School District has sent out a survey to the teachers, but I don't know if it's specific to what I mean, I know it's not specific to what we're doing at A.P.M. I mean, I meet with the teachers twice a month and we talk about how things are going. But as far as a board, I don't know that we've collected their feedback. Or I mean, I don't think we have.
I think we've been relying on our traditional structure, which is that the teachers have liaisons to the board. Tonight, we will hear from the Teacher Advisory Committee. And then also steering hears regularly from Cassie every month. And, you know, that is something that steering would hear from her about in terms of teacher morale, teacher needs, teacher concerns and questions.
Yeah, so let me just follow up again and say that I feel like the goal that we asked for to get the time to get the virtual teaching underfoot has, you know, people are starting to get the hang of it. Again, it's not perfect. We don't love it, but it's definitely given us time to figure some of this out. And then a couple things that I just think are, you know, maybe important to point out is we are not the only school that's struggling with like how to get students social time, and just that piece of not having an adult in the breakout room and who can organize after school or during lunch. The staff are extremely busy with meeting after meeting. And I think the other thing that might go unnoticed here at A.P.M. is our staff are dealing with multiple grade levels. So it's just a little bit different doing this virtually and having to do kind of 3 different grades or 2 different grades. And then it's not the same when you're in the classroom. You can be teaching and have kids socialize at the same time. It just takes longer. It takes, you know, it's just more prescribe this virtual world where you have to do this and then this and then this, and you can't kind of do it all at the same time like a classroom. So just something that I've noticed, you know, like when we talk about a middle school teacher who has one subject area, I am not, it just is a little different.
I agree with you, Cassie, totally. I'm, you know, sometimes I'm referencing like my son's experience, but I think, you know, he's got a teacher who's just teaching, you know, humanities or math or something like that. Whereas I realize that A.P.M. those teachers are teaching everything to, you know, first graders, second graders, third graders. Yeah, it's a different dynamic. I totally get it.
Is this something where we could ask for parent volunteers, or are there like liability issues involved where that's not possible?
That's a great question. And that's, again, another question that other schools have posed to our district. And we are allowed to use a parent volunteer, and then they would hold, the liability would be with them. But then we run into some technology issues, like as some of you have experienced using like an outside email address to try to get into like the district Chromebook or Google Meets. So, you know, just some silly roadblocks that we encounter with trying to figure this out. That's for sure.
Maybe we could do some brainstorming around this in our committee breakout rooms today to think about the social ways that the board can increase this. Are there any other questions or patterns that persons would like to mention or ask questions about in terms of the survey? Okay. Again, please, and you know, it is so important that if you have a question or a concern, to speak to your child's teacher, if it is a individual child need at the school, or with the admin, Mrs. Gilbo. If you have a question about board work or committee work during, you know, as we move forward, please do not hesitate to contact any member of steering, myself, or a specific committee chair or co-chair. Okay, we do encourage and welcome suggestions and helping everyone think through this challenging year. All right, I turn this over to Derek for the Vice President update.
Thank you, Stephanie. I had the opportunity to go to the Charter Council meeting back in October on the 20th. And my big takeaway from that was planning for next year's enrollment. The first half of the meeting was really geared towards IT and placement of buttons and workflow for the actual enrollment process, which I checked out on. Thankfully, we have that kind of buttoned down, I think. But the big thing for me was, well, what's going to be different this year when we take a look at enrollment? And this year is very challenging. I see the school district as a whole potentially losing students as others are open and enrolling to other districts that are open. So while we've been blessed to have a waiting list that traditionally is larger than what our enrollment is, that might not be the case, right, as we go forward. So we want to plan for, well, what could be different? What they brought up was, hey, there's not going to be a charter fair, or there's a high probability of no charter fair. Okay, no on-site visits. Oh, well, that poses some challenges when you have something as unique as Montessori learning. So, well, what do we do? How do we get our name out there? And, I started brainstorming on some ideas there, and we came up with the idea to basically create a separate committee that would be charged with looking at this and then presenting our proposal to the board then to say, here's what we think we should do from a campaign standpoint. How do we get out there? Do we just rely on our waiting list? Do we go out there and do a social media campaign? Do we hire a production crew to jazz everything up? Those will be, questions that we, we'll be asking and hopefully have answers to. So, with that, I'll call on, people from the board. If you're interested in joining something like that, please feel free and reach out to me. Cassie's been voluntold that she has to hang out with me regarding this, but other than that, we would love input. We would love maybe somebody that has, video production capabilities, advertising, sales, that type of a background, I think would be very useful. IT background, right? Because I think we're going to have to rely heavily on the virtual world to get our name out as well. So that was my big takeaway from that Charter Council meeting, is that we're going to have to think differently about our enrollment, and therefore we should be proactive and get jumping on that right away. So please feel free, reach out to me. My email's plastered all over the place for the A.P.M.A. vice president at gmail.com. And we'll start working on this in the next couple of weeks.
And just to clarify, anyone from the school community can join that ad hoc committee. So it's you don't have to be on the board. We encourage anyone who's interested to contact Derek.
Yes.
Anyone and all of the cyber universe.
Yeah, don't delay, because our open enrollment period is starting in December. And as much as it might be nice to have somebody else with working on it.
Okay, thank you. Dan, treasurer report.
All right, let me share my screen. Can you all see that? Beautiful. So really what it comes down to is a couple of big things that you should be aware of. One, this is not the final number. This was for paint easy for me to say. Paint a Plank, which for those of you who are unaware, that is a phenomenal as compared to previous years. There are some expenses that need to come out of that yet. So that's the incoming. I don't have the expenses yet. So once I have those, those will end up down here. So don't get too excited, but that was an impressive.
They're not much. It's like $100 or $150.
Right. So the point being, folks, is that apparently the pandemic was good for fundraising this year. So thank you, Paige and Matt and others that helped put that together. The other real main thing here is the $8,328 of the $12,775 of approved emergency COVID spending that occurred. I have gone through all of those receipts provided by Cassie and Jenny, and they've done a good job of documenting all of those. I will be going back to Jenny to just get some clarification on most items are labeled classroom materials, and we need to get a little bit more granular on that just for the sake of our record keeping as compared to what we approved. But they are, it's very clear they shopped around. They are all materials and items that fall under that category. And so I do have those available, and they're also broken down. That's kind of hard to see, but they're broken down by each of the purchase orders that came through. And you can go out there and take a look at those if you'd like. And then really what it comes down to is this is where we're sitting right now without the endowment. The endowment hasn't changed any. We haven't made an endowment payment contribution in a while, but this is where we're at. And we still have budgeted, that's the variance, right? So we're planning on doing quite a bit of more spending per the budget. Doesn't mean we have to, but be aware of that. And then lastly, Matt has sent me at least 2 emails now saying that he can't find this. That's probably my bad. I am saving it out to my Google Drive. Unfortunately, it's my Google Drive. So I will get that out to the A.P.M.A. Google Drive as well. Questions for me?
So Dan, if obviously we've done a great job of supporting our community, by the Paint the Plank number, right? Because that was not a set dollar amount. That was kind of a free will, give what you want type of thing. Yep. If somebody listening tonight, a parent, a grandparent wants to go ahead and donate to A.P.M.A. to help support this mission, what is the best way for them to go ahead and do that?
Honestly, the best way for a paper trail is mail a check to the school. That being said, if they'd rather not do that, we do have a PayPal account. I am working with PayPal to try to figure out what we can do to avoid the fees. For Paint a Plank, they did charge us that $1,644 variance would be higher had it not been for the fees that PayPal charges us. So we're trying to find a way where we could potentially set that up electronically for folks who want to give without putting a check in the mail, without taking those fees out. So more to come on that. That's one of my questions for the request for proposals from the local banks that we'll be sending out shortly, is whether or not they have an electronic funds transfer service available and what the fees, if any, are for a nonprofit.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. And we move to before we break into committee work, we will hear from the teachers. Dan, could you turn off your screen share? Thank you.
Do you want to start just with teacher updates? Is that it? Okay. I know in Children's House, I know we just finished a craft with with the turkey and stuff, and we've been talking a lot about the virtues. And I know Miss Rachel is planning a woodland tea party with the children in the afternoon. And we have stuff that we will send home with making tea and stuff for Practical Life. And we've also started a lot of the animal labeling and stuff, which is huge. The children love that, the really big pictures and labeling animals. So honestly, I've found a lot of excitement in some of those things. And I love seeing, again, for us, seeing the pictures come in and stuff and seeing some of their work and things. I feel like it's going really well in that regard. So yeah.
Thank you, Ashley. Nicole?
Well, I'll share E1's thoughts first. So E1s have been working on their state research for North America and just compiling the US map, kind of like they would do just at school if they were there. And then next week, they're planning 2 afternoon meetings. I believe that's next week. This says that they're planning 2 afternoon meetings to provide additional social opportunities for all students to participate in gratitude activities before Thanksgiving break. So it looks like they're, talking about some social things too in E1. So that's really great. E2 has been busy starting their year-long project, thinking about some of their activities, what they're going to do for their 3D model, started writing their paragraphs, and something positive that's come out of Canvas is it's been really nice for them to turn in their year-long project paragraphs every single week, and we can really, dive deeper into those paragraphs every week, check every single kid's, something that we just couldn't really do in school. So going forward, this is probably how they're going to turn in their year-long project. So it's been really nice to read through those paragraphs and kind of dive deeper into their writing with them. And then we've just been talking a little bit about empathy and gratitude going into this month, and trying to possibly start breakout rooms next week. So we've got some things that we're figuring out a little bit, and just been really impressed with our kids being able to reach out and ask questions if they need help with anything, and just being responsible in that way. So
Any questions for the teachers?
No questions. I think you guys are doing an amazing job. And, I have Marlo, from E1, and Jada was just actually in my house. We kind of live together essentially. And she, she's down, she's doing her work. Like, she loves it. These kids are like totally involved. You guys have done a great job. I don't know. I just have to say, like, virtual learning, I think, what you guys have put out there has been really great. So thumbs up. Thanks.
I want to echo what Paige said. I have Owen in Children's House, and it's been very engaging. Last few weeks has really been amazing.
Derek? Oh, sorry, your hand was up. Your electronic hand was up. Sorry. I've been on so many Zoom meetings today, so many. Yes, I just, overall, before we close the live portion of our meeting, I just want to extend the entire board thanks, the entire education staff at A.P.M. I have family members who are teachers, and right now K-12 educators are pulling so much and have so much on their shoulders. And I extend our gratitude towards you for doing this and rising to the occasion. And the same goes with every parent and every grandparent and every aunt and every friend of a pod who is lifting parents up and providing shoulders or virtual room hangouts to cry on, because it is rough. It is also a challenge. And so our utter gratitude for hanging in there, for driving your, and getting the pickups and helping your kids get on Google Meets and sharing your concerns and questions with the board and the educators. It is important, and we extend our gratitude toward the parents and families and friends of A.P.M. And with that, we will move to adjourn the live portion of our meeting. I am correct, right? Do we have, am I missing agenda items? No. Okay. So I'm going to go do that. We'll come back and we'll split into committee work groups. Okay. All right.